Hello everyone, my name is Pixlriffs and welcome back to the Minecraft Survival Guide. I hope you guys are having a good day. Today is the day we are finally going to get started on the permanent raid farm that I have been promising since the beginning of this week. It is raid week and we might actually end up splitting this into two parts because I have a feeling what we are going to take on today is going to be quite the mammoth task. We are going to be converting a pillager outpost into a place where we can farm raid mobs for the foreseeable future. Basically, we're going to be able to farm tons and tons of emeralds, totems of undying, all kinds of stuff at this raid farm, and it's actually not going to be based on this outpost, because we've done a lot around this outpost. I quite like the area around here, but the area is just a massive desert. There is land in basically every direction, and for this raid farm to be most effective, we kind of want to limit the amount of land that's going to be around it, and that's not really ideal here, because that means terraforming a lot of desert, maybe covering it in water or something like that. Creating a perimeter around this raid farm is kind of going to be how it gets optimized for maximum performance, or at least the best performance that I am personally interested in, which is not all that much considering that this is only a single player world. I don't have to supply emeralds and totems of undying for an entire multiplayer server or anything, but I at least want the thing to run sort of efficiently, and so to that end we are not going to be converting this beloved outpost, the outpost that is featured in so many of the videos this week. We are going to be leaving this one intact. I'm kind of okay with that in a way. It's sort of a relic of the world at this point. It's something that's been around for a while, and also it's a place where we have set up a couple of other farms like the friendly pillager setup that we have over here, which I plan on converting a whole bunch more pillagers with in the days and weeks to come. Not only that, but we have this setup over here, which we were using to make sure we could trap some ravagers. We might end up doing some more stuff like that in future, which of course we could do with other outposts and other raid locations, but it might just be kind of good to keep this one around. And what I'm planning on doing is searching using a desktop tool called Amidst. We're going to be searching for an ideal location for a pillager outpost, one that has basically the minimal amount of land. If we can find a pillager outpost that's on an island out in the ocean, that is going to be the location we will set up a raid farm. Hopefully, as long as it's not too far away. I feel like if it's more than like 10,000 blocks away, we probably just want to go with whatever the second best is, whatever's closer. But today, we're going to get started on that. We need to find the location first, and then we can start the process of converting one of these towers into a pillager farm and a raid farm. So folks, here we are in Amidst. This is a program much like Mine Atlas or Chunkbase, but it's a desktop program that you actually have to download. You don't really install it, you just kind of run it from your downloads folder or wherever. It's going to be linked in the description, and I'm afraid Amidst only works for the Java version of Minecraft right now. There may be versions that work in Bedrock Edition in future, but you can use Chunkbase if you're interested in finding stuff like this on Bedrock Edition. And the only reason I'm using this is just to make sure that there's not too much time wasted in exploring the world looking for the ideal location, because these pillager watchtowers are quite few and far between. The icons I've enabled on the screen show our home spawn point. That is roughly the location where we built the farmhouse, and Founder's Forge is kind of out in this direction over here. And then, as you can see, there are icons dotted around the world that indicate where you can find villages and where you can find pillager watchtowers. As you will see, there are a lot of villages compared to the amount of pillager outposts. The outposts are relatively few. As we scroll through the land here, you can see that one right there is the one we've been working with this entire time. This pillager outpost here, kind of across the river from this village, which is the one we converted and we did our first raid defense in, and there are a few other outposts around the world. Some of them are closer to oceans than others. We've got one out here in the desert that is also quite close to a village, but has a fair amount of land mass around it, but is still on the border of an ocean here. So what I'm looking for is something that's out on an island like this, or like this, somewhere that's surrounded by ocean, or at least land mass that I feel confident we could terraform into a sort of perimeter so that we can make it spawn friendly as far as raid mobs go, but make sure it is spawn proof against a wider amount of stuff. And I think, having looked around in this program a little bit earlier, I have found one that's in an acceptable range, and it's over here. This one right here is on the edge of an island. It's about 60 blocks away from land in this direction, which we could probably do something about, either by terraforming this beach and just converting all of that into ocean, or potentially just lowering our render distance so the raid mobs are forced to spawn within a smaller radius of this island. And we can terraform the rest of this island. We can maybe just dump water all over it or remove the terrain little by little. Maybe bring a beacon over here and flatten some of it. There is a forest hills there, which seems to be the only major kind of, you know, large section of land that we would need to get rid of. But that is right there in the middle of this sort of patch of ocean, and I think that's going to be the ideal location for our raid farm. It doesn't seem like there is a huge amount of other locations within what I think of as the acceptable range for a raid farm. And for your purposes, you might want to travel far and wide looking for stuff like this. I mean, over here we've got an ice plains over here, but there are a lot of mountainous biomes around there, which would be much more effort to take down. There are places like this where you have a village just on the edge of an island here, or a possible village location at least. This shows locations where the game will try to spawn villages and pillager outposts in these generated structures. It won't necessarily be able to spawn something there if the landmass is too small or world generation just doesn't work out. But you might want to go a little bit further afield if you're after the absolutely pinnacle, the ideal location. If you wanted somewhere that was literally out in the middle of the ocean like that, then you could look further afield if you wanted to. Personally, I think this location up here is probably going to be ideal. It's certainly more ideal than some of these landlocked pillager towers where there really is no ocean in sight and we would have to terraform the entire terrain around there for it to work optimally. So this pillager outpost here should be located at 2612, negative 5372, and so if we fly out there just to make sure the watchtower actually exists in that location, then we should be able to start converting that into something resembling a raid farm. Here it is, folks, and let me tell you, this is looking pretty ideal over here. We have a pillager watchtower on this side, and a village right over there. Perfect for dragging a villager over to the watchtower so that we can make sure we have a villager in there to start raids with. And as far as I can see, no pillagers seem to be spawning yet. I guess we're not close enough, but once we get a little closer, yep, you definitely see them start to spawn around the perimeter. So let's take a quick look at this island. Let's see quite how much trouble this is going to be to take down, because there's a couple of little sea islands out here. There's just a couple of beaches and things that we will need to demolish. And this section over here is probably going to be the most troublesome. We could, of course, like I said, go with the strategy of just covering the entire thing in water, making it not spawnable for pillagers. Oh, there's a shipwreck over there. That's kind of cool. But yeah, we should be able to convert this area into a radius for a pillager raid farm. But this definitely seems like more work than I will be able to do in a single episode. So I think we're probably going to split this into two parts. We will try our best to prepare this area first, and then we should be able to make it work after that. The main problem being, of course, that I don't want raid mobs to spawn on any of these islands and then have to come to the center of the village super slowly through the middle of the ocean. That seems like it's going to take absolutely ages for that wave to reach us and then get cleared by any kind of, you know, automated farm setup that we have going on here. And so it's really going to be to our advantage to clear out as much of the surrounding terrain as possible. This is going to be like making a perimeter for a witch farm, which we have definitely done in the past, but it's going to be a heck of a job. And so bringing a beacon over here, clearing out some of the stone underneath all of this grass is going to be ideal. We'll have to bring over a bunch of shulker boxes to take the materials home with us, of course, because I really don't like wasting materials in situations like this. I might want to terraform some stuff later and I will need the grass. Luckily, that village over there is kind of outside of the render distance as I stand here, and my render distance is still set to 16 chunks. So if we turn it down to maybe like 8 chunks, and we have that as our radius when we're doing the farming, we're really not going to have too much terrain to take care of. It's just going to be this patch over here, these patches over there, those islands, maybe a little bit around the outside just to be safe. I think we can make it work, folks. I think we can make this happen, and it should be a pretty straightforward and efficient farm. So without further ado, I'm going to head back home, grab my materials, probably drop off all of this stuff that I have still in my inventory from making those friendly pillagers the other day, and we're just going to crack into this thing. Of course, this is a perfect opportunity to do that in the form of a time-lapse. Hey folks, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the time lapse. And yeah, this is all the work we are going to do today. There is a lot of work involved in taking down all of the terrain on this island. Obviously, some of the little straggling islands out there are going to be a lot less effort, but this area is going to be entirely underwater for the most part. I do want to get this taken care of, and I want to do it in a way that looks a little bit neater than this. This is really not all that necessary, but it's just something that for my own peace of mind, for my own sense of aesthetics and stuff, I would really like to get this entire thing flattened out, and maybe we could do something a bit more decorative with it, perhaps. I don't know for certain, but the idea here is that we make no spaces around the outside of here where either pillagers or the raid mobs themselves can spawn, because of course you can imagine if a raid party spawns over there, if one of the waves of raiders spawns over there, it's going to take them ages to get all the way down here. So ideally, for the optimal spawn rates, we really want to make sure that the only place they can spawn is down here, basically at the base of the tower. And you'll notice inside of here there don't seem to be any pillagers spawning. This is more or less the only place where they could spawn, and they don't seem to spawn very much if you limit the area to just the inside of the tower. As far as I can tell, they will spawn occasionally, really, really occasionally in a section of the tower, but for the most part, the only places they like to spawn seem to be in the land around the outside. So by limiting that, we are limiting the amount of spawning that can take place for regular pillagers. And if we only get one or two of those, then they should not hopefully add on to the waves of the raid that keep appearing, and hopefully they should be dealt with quickly enough that the waves of the raid can progress, instead of them all just piling on like they did the other day when we were trying to trap Ravagers and constantly having to deal with more raiders joining the raid. That's my thinking for it. Anyway, we'll see how that goes. But in order to take down all of the terrain around here, I had to flood out the rest of this island somehow. And now I'm left with these giant rippling waves of water from the peaks where the land started. And now you can kind of see where the land used to be. And now it looks like this. But we're going to have to get rid of most of that. We'll probably deal with some of the higher up water sources with sponges. Just pillar up and then get rid of the water sources and then come back down and leave a thin layer of water across the rest of the land. But that is enough to block pillager spawns, which is great because I really didn't want pillagers spawning everywhere whilst I was working on the landscaping around here. It was just going to be inconvenient. Having said that, though, the radius for these towers is absolutely enormous. I'm going to actually mark out one side of it here just so you can see what the deal is, because it is a 71 by 71 spawning area around here for pillagers. So to give you a little bit of perspective on that, if this right here is the central block of the tower, we are coming out 30 blocks on each side. Let me get 30 blocks out of my inventory here for you so you can see exactly how much that is. So that is 30 blocks out from the center of the tower. Imagine that on the opposite side, and then imagine a square around the outside of the tower like that, and that is the amount of spawning area we have to deal with. That is a 71 by 71 by 71 cube as well, so it extends 71 blocks from the center of the tower. I'm not sure if that's from the base of the tower or from the middle of the tower or what. Just to make sure, we are probably going to make sure that we have at least an 80 by 80 perimeter around the outside to make sure no pillagers spawn, which is a pretty large area, which is why I've had to basically cut down all of the area around here. And I'm fairly certain I have had some pillagers spawning a little bit further away. Like I did spot a couple that spawned around here, although I'm not certain. I'm fairly certain that isn't in the radius of the tower, but they may have been part of a random pillager patrol. They may just have been directed over here by the currents of water from one of the blocks over there. I'm not entirely certain what the spawning is for these guys, but you would expect to find them all over this island if they would spawn that much further away. So hopefully we have at least made sure that the area around the tower is safe from pillager spawns. Of course, if we just wanted this to be a straight pillager farm, if we didn't have the raid mechanic to take into account, all we would need to do would be to prepare this area and just create a spawning platform, set something up that was going to lure the pillagers down into an area where we could kill them nice and easily, and that would be it. But we need to bring a villager over here and have it be the central point of a village so that we can really turn this into a raid farm. So I guess that's what we are going to work on in the next episode. Today, though, we are out of time. The sun is setting over there, and we are basically out of time for this episode. But I hope you guys have enjoyed a look at the setup for this pillager farm and the lengths we're going to go to make sure this thing is running optimally. And I hope you guys are looking forward to next week when we will be able to tackle the raid farm in earnest. This has been Raid Week on the channel, and Raid Week, I guess, is continuing a little bit into next week as well. But thank you so much for the support on these videos. It really has meant a lot to see people really enthusiastic about this stuff, and I'm looking forward to delivering more of it to you next week. Thank you so much for watching this episode of the Minecraft Survival Guide. My name has been Pixlriffs. Don't forget to leave a like on this episode if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you want to see more, and I'll see you guys soon. Take care. Bye for now.